I don't think I've ever played an RPG Maker game. I used to own RPG Maker when I was a kid, but that was about 20 years ago. Recently, games have started to be developed with RPG Maker to try to break the bounds of what is possible using its engine. A lot of these use introspective storytelling or horror themes to express what they're trying to get across. This has actually happened so much that the RPG Maker horror game has kind of become a bit of a joke. People have started to immediately look at games made in RPG Maker and dismiss them because of the engine that they were built on. If it's horror on top of that, then you can almost 100% guarantee that there is a broad audience that will completely dismiss the game in question. I say all of this because if you're one of those people, I want you to know that you should give Omori a chance. Omori is an RPG Maker's psychological horror game that has been in development for over 6 years. I remember seeing the first trailer for the game and being absolutely blown away by how fantastic looking it was. The team behind the Omori trailer reached heights of video game trailer crafting that I was under the impression was only something that Hideo Kojima could do. The art style was very inspired, the music was fantastic, and the promise of something deeper below immediately grabbed my attention. Because of its long development time, there were a lot of people who were under the impression that Omori was never going to come out. I was on that boat myself. I would go and occasionally watch the trailer just to remind myself how hyped I was for its development. Apparently, the development staff got burned out and didn't want to push through after losing the initial spark for the game's creation. I myself felt this exact same way recently, so I can't blame the developers. But now that I've played Omori and seen the type of story that it tells, the themes of the human experience that it tackles, I think I have a better idea now more than ever what must have happened. Omori is a depressing game. Not all the way through, though. The twist ending will leave you disturbed and upset. The only other games that I can think of that upset me this much were Doki Doki Literature Club and Silent Hill 2. Doki Doki forces you to watch a decomposing body over a handful of days, and Silent Hill 2 reveals James's hidden secret past, producing the same feeling of dread that I get from the ending of Omori. That feeling that makes you want to speak out loud and say, "Oh my god." The story of Omori is dense. The game is based in two worlds, one that is the dream world of our main character Sunny, and the other that is his waking world. In the dream world of Headspace, Sunny goes by the name of Omori and spends his days exploring the dream world with his friends and fantastic creatures that live there. The dream world is very childish and gives off an earthbound feeling. It wouldn't be out of place scrawled on a kindergarten playground. I would liken it to maybe Adventure Time or Katamari. Back in the real world, Sunny is a shut-in hermit. He spends his time inside his house, avoiding the outside world and the people whom he dreams of as being his best friends. The story outside is that Sunny has only a few days before he moves away. He's alone in his home while his mother gets everything ready for the move to the big city. Sunny's father, though, is nowhere to be seen. It's important to note that Omori is an RPG game. You can choose to spend your time locked away in your house, or you can let your friends convince you to come outside and spend time with them. The game intends for you to go outside and absorb the storyline that it takes you through, but you can always choose to never go outside at all, and only experience the story through the dream world known as Headspace. The friends that Sunny has in the real world are his party members in the dream world. After one of the friends, Basil, goes missing, the group sets out to find him, exploring the colorful landscapes and leaving no stone unturned. Each party member excels at different things, both inside and outside of combat. Aubrey is a heavy-hitter barbarian who can smash things in the overworld. Hero is a white mage who can charm NPCs, and Kel is a black mage that can throw his ball to interact with objects at a distance. These characters all have very different personalities and feel very real. Omori spends the whole game with the three of them, getting to know each one of them and overcoming everything together. It reminds me of a Persona game and quite a few visual novels. Each one's fleshed out to the extent to where by the end of the game, I felt like I had such a good handle on the characters' personalities that I could hear their opinions before they voiced them. This is the type of world Omori presents. It's very lived in, the people react naturally, and the experience is very personal. If you're a fan of games with realistic characters and interactions, then this game might be a 10 out of 10 for you. Though Omori doesn't have a deep dialogue system, I ended up feeling closer to every character in Omori than I ever did in something like Final Fantasy XII. These feelings of lacking systems come up in the gameplay though too. Since the game was designed on the RPG Maker platform, what you see is what you get generally. It is turn-based RPG combat similar to the original Final Fantasy for the NES, but with a slight twist. Instead of an elemental wheel present in the multitude of RPGs, Omori uses the character's emotional states. You can apply each one of the 3 emotional states to your allies or enemies to get an upper hand in combat. For example, if a character is made angry, then they will have the buffs generally associated with the Berserk status effect. Sadness works like mage armor, and happiness is a higher chance to crit but with lower accuracy. Happiness beats anger, anger beats sadness, and sadness beats happiness. It's not very robust, and definitely not a system that you're going to get a lot of mileage of, though the game is very short anyways. If you really want to dig your teeth into it though, underneath the game, it's brimming with side content. Though Omori only has 4 or 5 main areas that you explore in, you can't go into each one without turning a corner and running into a side quest. None of these side quests are lazily written either. There is no go fight 17 monsters and bring me 3 boar pelts. Each one that I experienced had its own little plot and unique characters. Some even had their own unique music. Music and sound were obviously a big focus in development. The music in this game is some of the most memorable I've ever heard. It's up there with some of the greats. One track in particular I haven't been able to get out of my head since I finished the game. It's the same feeling that you get when you play an Elder Scrolls game with a calm overworld theme. I'm going to be listening to this soundtrack long after my second playthrough, and I do want to do a second playthrough. The moment I finished Omori, I considered booting it up again and giving it a second go immediately. With all the side quests and several different endings, the replayability was obviously considered during the game's design. I wanted so badly to go back to the colorful and friendly crayon-themed world. The production team did an excellent job of making the dream world of Headspace, where the player spends most of their time, feel welcoming and sweet. There is just no room for the player to not understand why Sunny would want to spend as much time here as humanly possible. In the real world, the horrors that Omori presents you with are violent and soul-sucking. No matter what type of individual you are, the art team of Omori did an excellent job portraying Sunny's fears and emotional states stylistically so that you can sympathize with his situation. Sadly though, I would say that these horror segments probably only take up about 1/10 of the game. There were several segments where I thought that the horror to delight scales were tipped a little bit out of balance. But now that I've finished the game, I think that I can safely say that it wouldn't make any sense to do it otherwise for the story. In context, it makes sense that Sunny would try to spend as much time inside the cheerful dream world that he's created as possible, and there are very few segments where small bits of horror peek their head out and glance at you for a second. But for the most part, the player feels in control and has complete agency over the game and the gameplay. In general, the way that the game controls and plays is the same for most RPG Maker games. There is one strange thing that happened to me though, and I don't know how they did it. But once the game booted up to the title screen, my body instinctively reached for the Z and X and the arrow keys. I've thought about this a great deal, and I still can't figure out how they intrinsically communicated to me that that's where my hand should be to play the game. If you're like several individuals that I know and you've been starving for an older feeling RPG to sink your teeth into, Omori delivers in spades, doing just enough fresh to stand out from its contemporaries, but keeping older game mechanics that fit its style and storytelling for flavor. This is, however, one of the only games that I've ever experienced myself where I wholly agree with the decision to put a warning message on the game's boot up. This game deals with some major themes of depression, suicide, anxiety, and guilt. If you or someone that you love have mental impairments that they might be working through at the moment, you might want to wait until you have a better handle on yourself before deep diving into Omori. This is only exacerbated by the choice to make Omori a silent protagonist so that it's easier to place yourself in his shoes. I would say that everyone should play Omori when they get a chance. It's short and sweet and has plenty of bang for your buck. Though the game is currently selling for $40, I think that this price is well deserved. I'll probably be playing it over and over again as the years go by, and maybe even more if patches come out and add even more content to the game. Though the game does have a few bugs at the moment, the dev team is already on top of them and listening intently to the game's audience for feedback. By the time this review comes out, I wouldn't be surprised if Omori is now completely bug-free. Omori gets a 9 out of 10. Great. Give it a try. You won't regret it. Speaking of regrets, if this video doesn't feel like a waste of your time, then please consider subscribing to the channel. I've got tons of more content coming in the future that I'd love you to be there to see. Thank you all so very much. I love you.